From the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network broadcast shed at the Iowa State Fair, this is Iowa Ag Matters. I'm Riley Smith. In today's show, Mark wraps up his conversation with Mike Witt of Wiffels Hybrids. I have a breakdown of yesterday's WASDE report with Greg McBride of Allendale, and Dustin visits with Kelsey Timp, the outgoing Iowa Dairy Princess. Now let's welcome in our hosts, Mark Magnuson and Dustin Huffman.
Well, it is a wet and wild start to the Iowa State Fair. I'm Mark Magnuson with Dustin here today. And Dustin, as we got to the fair here this morning, it was absolutely pouring rain. I know you were here early. What was it like with everybody scrambling around in the dark?
Well, it was about 4:45 when I got here. The rain was on the way, but it was not here yet. But, 6:30 or so, it started to rain, and we had the cattle starting to come in from some of the steer show people. A couple of the bulls started to come in already. Made it a little bit more interesting. That storm kicked up pretty quick. It started to lighten a little bit when I first got here, like dawn was breaking, and then all of a sudden it got really black again around 6:30 and just started to just open up, and it dumped. And I had to shut the shed back up here because we had wind blowing things around through the windows, and I had to lock everything down, which thankfully we're in the shed. For those who have been coming to see us for the few years we've been here since 2019, we have always had that tent. And as we've talked about that many times here this week, Mark, I'm grateful we had the building up off the ground, and it stayed plenty dry in here, and we didn't get the wind here like they did to the north, up by Ankeny, up towards Ames and Nevada and that area. But, we're lucky so far. Nothing too much. Some flash flooding going on. I know they closed one of the streets here around the fair, and so they postponed a few things, moved some things, and so there's a lot of pivoting going on, but it wouldn't be the state fair without that. And I don't know if you heard this. Speaking of storms, Mark, did you know there was a derecho in Illinois earlier this week? We saw, I'm sure you followed a little bit about that, and they're still waiting on word of estimates for crop damage, Illinois and Indiana, possibly even to Ohio.
Yes, I did hear that, Dustin. And the thing I was wondering is how widespread was the derecho? Because as we know, in 2020, when it came through Iowa, it was absolutely devastating, what the high winds did to the crops and some of the infrastructure, some of the grain silos, things like that. So I haven't heard those follow-up reports yet, but yeah, it was a scary situation just the other night with those extreme high winds. And as you mentioned, for us here at the fair, dealing with the weather here today, but I'm sure I can almost guarantee in just a couple days, maybe even tomorrow, we'll be thankful we have the shed because it's the sun bearing down on us and we've got some nice shade.
Yeah, definitely will. And, but the temperatures are looking pretty mild. I mean, obviously, right around where we want them to be right now for this opening week. But luckily it's not sweating like those heat domes we had around a month ago. I'm glad to see that. But yeah, the markets are going to be watching that weather. Interesting conversation you're going to hear coming up here a little bit with Eric Ralph of Comstock. But the big question coming out of that WASDE report, and I know Riley's going to have more with Greg McBride come up, is where in the world did they find 3 million acres of planted crops? As we talked about, Eric made the joke, picking up a field or two here and there that maybe didn't get counted correctly is one thing. Picking up Delaware is a whole different story.
Yeah, it is. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense when you look at it just from the perspective of where did all these acres come from? I guess the one answer that I would have is that it got a little bit better in terms of the reporting with the information that they have from FSA and the Risk Management Agency, and those exact numbers maybe made the difference. But I'm with you. I was scratching my head yesterday too. And speaking of getting into the market discussion, we will have Dustin Huffman joined by Eric Ralph of Comstock now for the discussion on the grains.
We are talking with Eric Ralph of Comstock Investments. Eric, one day after the WASDE report and the crop estimates, what are we looking at this market as we get ready to head into the main part of the trading day?
Well, I think the reality is you've got a lot of long profit for the week after yesterday's jump in the corn. So seeing a little ebb and flow in that market's not going to be any big surprise. And we're seeing that here coming out of the break, down 4 cents in December. 476.5 last trade. We closed right up at the top end of yesterday's range, so very strong market. And the yield number that we saw yesterday warrants that kind of reaction. And I think this is going to turn a corner here. I don't know when we'll see the realities of that derecho that moved through mostly Illinois and Indiana 2 nights ago, but whenever we see the assessment reports from that could kind of give us an indicator as to how much loss is going to be accrued because of it. that's going to be a little bit of another spur, and then we're going to be watching weather. But at the end of the day, I think it's going to be demand that really drives this market. And the old saying, demand markets need to be bought and supply markets need to be sold. I think it's going to be demand that takes the driver's seat moving forward, although the burst right now is due to the supply side. This is something that could develop into a story as time goes on. And of course, we're just going to have to kick back and wait and see how many months it takes to get this thing trading above $5 to sustain trade above $5. As we have December 27 trading right now at $4.95. It's pretty impressive stuff out there. So we'll see. We saw another 125,000 tons of soybeans sold to China announced on a daily flash sale this morning. The weekly sales of beans and corn, both very impressive. This is something that could continue, especially with the condition issues that China's been dealing with. And again, kind of hide and watch while wheat takes center stage because of the Russia-Ukraine conflict.
All right, and I guess, the big question I've been hearing asked here since the WASDE report came out and the crop estimates report came out, the question's been, where in the world did they find so many acres that they didn't know about last month or the month before?
Yeah, your guess is as good as mine. Of course, the USDA is going to fall under scrutiny no matter what they put out or when or how. But the acres is kind of mind-boggling. We didn't have the prevent plant acres like we did last year. It was a sharp decrease in prevent plant. So that's going to make up some of that ground, but not the kind of numbers that we saw reflected yesterday. And where that ground's being broke out of, I can't imagine. There's also been a lot of talk in some of the plains areas about more CRP ground going in. So that's not going to be conducive to additional row crop acreage. I really don't know, but it was a bit of a surprise to see that.
Yeah, that it was. I know people were like, I could tell you, if they found 3,000 acres or 30,000 acres, but was it 3 million acres is what they came up with?
Yeah.
So interesting amount of numbers. That's, that's almost a state, in some places.
Yeah.
But
yeah. I mean, how did we come up with like Delaware? I don't know.
Exactly. I mean, it just kind of popped out of nowhere.
This year at the Iowa State Fair, Fair Spirit meets 250 years of American history in a celebration across the fair. See the America 250 Iowa display and a permanent sculpture created just for the fair. Walk the Iowa Veterans Memorial Walkway honoring service and sacrifice. Experience 250 years of the American flag, along with red, white, and blue contests and fair favorites. Then look to the sky for drone shows glowing in red, white, and blue, lighting up the fair like never before. From history to celebration, it all comes together at the Iowa State Fair. Learn more at iowastatefair.org.
August 13th through the 23rd.
Well, it is still very early at the 2026 State Fair, day number 1, but we've already had royalty stop by with the outgoing Iowa Dairy Princess, and Dustin had the chance to speak with Kelsey. Here is Dustin with more.
Iowa State Fair 2026 on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. I'm being joined right now by the soon-to-be outgoing Dairy Princess, Iowa State Dairy Princess, Kelsey Timp. Thank you so much for taking the time to visit with us.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.
All right, so the new princesses were crowned last night. You want to tell us first of all who they were, and then we'll talk about your year in the position.
Yeah, so last night we crowned our 73rd Iowa Dairy Princess and alternate. The 73rd Iowa Dairy Princess is Hannah Hagan from Almaquis County, and the 73rd Iowa Dairy Princess alternate is May Wiedemeyer, representing the Iowa Jersey Cattle Club.
All right, so talk a little bit about what you've experienced this year. I mean, obviously, it's just going to be getting rolling for them after the state fair. What kind of things did you experience? What kind of highlights of your year?
Yeah, so this year was definitely filled with all kinds of activities. We traveled to all 4 corners of the state with over 80 events and 10,000 miles traveled. We met people from all walks of life. We did on-farm activities like open houses, school events, farm tours, and everything in between. We were at the Iowa Eats Festival, saw lots of different dairy producers, dairy products, and ate lots of ice cream, made lots of cow hats.
Well, that sounds like fun. I mean, so obviously we talk about the dairy industry. Iowa's usually we focus so much on the cattle, the hogs, the corn, and the soybeans, and those are all great, but we have a robust dairy industry in the state too.
Yeah, so Iowa actually ranks number 10th in dairy production. And we're climbing too. We've got all kinds of dairy in almost all of the state, and Northeast Iowa, Northwest Iowa with the Lamar's Blue Bunny plant and soon to be the Daisy plant in Boone. Mm-hmm. So we're still on the up. We're growing, which is good to hear. And
what kind of things have you been hearing from people when you're on these trips? I mean, learning about dairy, or even from some of the people who are in the industry?
Yeah, so I hear all kinds of things about people from all walks of life. Like I said, we talk to producers and consumers. We answer questions, and people just want to know more about us and what we do, because coming from a different background of them, we have their real world experience, and they just want to know what it's like. And we want them to be confident putting dairy in their refrigerator, on their dinner table, and in their snack bags.
And what's kind of the message you've been getting out to those people, on behalf of like the family farms out there that are producing those dairy products?
Yeah, so we want to share the message that dairy is a nutrient-rich product that is super good for bone growth and brain development. It's something that you should include in your diet because it provides 13 essential nutrients, and it's nature's most perfect food.
So I'm sure you're going to be giving Hannah some advice when she takes over for you here at the end of the fair. What kind of things are you telling her to be ready for?
Yeah, so one of my biggest pieces of advice to her was to just say yes. Say yes to everything. Say yes to the long drives, the early mornings. Sometimes the days can get long, but you have to remember why you're doing it and who you're doing it for. The Iowa dairy farmers are really, really happy to have us representing them in all situations, talking about them, sharing the passion that they bring to their operations every single day. So just remembering your why and saying yes to all of the things.
All right, so I'm going to ask one last question for you. Of the whole year that you were in service here, what was your favorite part of the year? What was there kind of the thing that stands out the most?
It's such a hard question because we did so many amazing things and met so many amazing people. But the one thing that stands out is definitely just the people as a whole. I met so many wonderful people, kids to adults, people who inspire me, even when I met a 6th grader from Oskaloosa, and she really showed me that the future of the dairy industry is really bright, and we've got a lot to look forward to. So meeting people like that, it definitely is a highlight of the year.
All right, Kelsey Timp has been with us. She is going to be the outgoing dairy princess for the state. Our new ones have been crowned here last night at the fair. Kelsey, thanks so much for taking the time to visit.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Your local radio station brings you the local news you depend on. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network complements that with ag news, weather, and market updates tailored for Iowa's farmers. Together, we deliver the best of both worlds, local connection and industry expertise. It's all to keep you connected with the heartbeat of the heartland. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, connecting rural Iowa with the news that matters to you.
Time to run down those basis numbers for you here on Iowa Ag Matters on this Wednesday. I'm Dustin Huffman. Taking a look at cash bids around the state, a few elevators making some changes here, about half of them. Let's run down those bids for you. ADM Burlington, even on corn today at $4.40. Soybeans 25 cents under at $11.49. Cargill and Eddyville 12 cents under on corn, cash bid $4.28. New Co-op Algona, they're 27 cents under on corn, $4.13. Soybeans are 20 cents under, cash bid $11.54. Ag State Sheldon, 15 cents under on corn, $4.25. Soybeans 35 cents under at $11.39. Ag State Alta, 26 cents under on corn, $4.14. Soybeans 30 cents under, cash bid $11.44. Cargill Cedar Rapids, 9 cents under on corn, cash bid $4.31. Soybeans a nickel over at $11.79. Five Star Co-op Nashua, 30 cents under on corn, $4.10. Soybeans 35 cents under, they're at $11.39. Lincoln Way Energy Nevada, 15 cents under on corn, $4.25 for the cash bid. ADM Des Moines a nickel over on soybeans, they're at $11.79 for their cash price. New Co-op Red Oak, 20 cents under on corn, $4.20. Soybeans a dime under at $11.64. Mid-Iowa Cooperative Green Mountain, 42 cents under on corn, cash bid $3.98. Soybeans 50 cents under, $11.24. New Co-op Sheraton, 24 cents under on corn, $4.16. Soybeans 20 cents under, they're at $11.54 for the cash price. Walk-On Feed Ranch, 48 cents under on corn, $3.92. Soybeans 64 cents under at $11.10. New Co-op Glidden, 26 cents under on corn, they're at $4.14. Soybeans a dime under, cash bid $11.64. Innovative Ag Farley, 41 cents under on corn, $3.99. Soybeans 69 cents under at $11.05. And at Cargill Muscatine, they're 30 cents under on corn today, cash bid $4.10. Soybeans 45 cents under, they're at $11.29. Cash corn and soybean bids are subject to change without notice. Always check with your local elevator making sales to obtain the most recent price. And that's been a check of your basis numbers here on Iowa Ag Matters. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this.
Alabama, live in concert. Friday, August 21st, 8 p.m., Iowa State Fair Grandstand. With special guest Exile. Like Grandma and Grandpa. Alabama, live. Reserve tickets on sale now through iowastatefair.org.
You gotta have a fiddle in the band.
Alabama.
Well, yesterday was a big report day in the way of the August WASDE report, and we did have some surprises in there. And Riley Smith having the chance to discuss things with Greg McBride of Allendale. Here's Riley with Greg for more in-depth discussion.
Riley Smith, Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, on the phone right now with Greg McBride of Allendale as we take a look at the August WASDE report. Greg, there were a couple surprises in this month's report, as evidenced in the current market prices. What did we see from the USDA?
Yeah, we started out the day stronger based off of headline support from the attack on two Russian ports. That got the wheat market going. That pulled the corn and the beans with it. Then we got the USDA report. It was neutral for wheat. No major excitement there. But the corn came in with a lower than expected yield. Came in at 180.7. The expectation was 182.4, but the USDA in typical fashion offset that with increases to acreage. So your overall production for corn goes up by 13 million bushels in corn, from 16 billion to 16 billion and 13. We did see an increase in planted acres by 1.4 million. We saw an increase thereafter with the harvested acres at 1.2 million. So again, the only changes that you really are going to see off of this USDA report for both old crop and new crop were 75 million bushels in increases for exports. So that's where our ending stocks on old crop go down by 75 million, and our new crop ending stocks go down by 137 million to 1.653 at this point. So it is a friendly report for corn. It does open the upside up a little bit, but corn's going to need some help from either the wheat market or the bean market to continue to find that footing and go that much higher.
And when we think about what was expected for this report, what was the kind of general market guess supposed to be?
Yeah, we were not looking at anything specific on acreage for corn, but the expectation for ending stocks was supposed to be somewhere around 1.72 for the new crop corn. So coming in significantly below that. It does tilt this market to a friendly note. It's just now it's a matter of do we see any more upside, because it'll be hard for corn to do its own thing. It's a lot of times it's going to depend on a bump in wheat, which is also a feed grain, or maybe even some outside support from the soybean market, both of which didn't necessarily have the best report today.
And yeah, when we think of those soybeans, just seeing that production go up, but what does that kind of mean moving forward?
Yeah, so the only changes that they really made that were positive for the soybeans were crushings. They increased crush on the old crop by 5 million, so that brings your ending stocks down to 325. But they also increased new crop crushings by 30 million. The offset of that, obviously, an increase in production of 44 million bushels, because you may have lowered yield, but not enough to offset the increase of 1.4 million bushel or 1.4 million acres for harvested and planting. So an increase of overall 10 million bushels to new crop soybeans. They chose not to do anything with exports, which that makes sense, because as we've talked about, the export demand for soybeans is good. It's gotten us back in line with where we need to be. But the problem with it is we already know that we should be getting this export demand from China specifically. So just getting us along and keeping us on pace is what they've done so far. We're going to need to see a lot more purchases from China to really feel like we're either ahead or we're going to keep that pace going. So I wouldn't expect many major changes to the export side of things for soybeans.
And then with the wheat numbers as well, just here at midday, looking at the prices, up 22 front month for Chicago wheat, 27 in Kansas City wheat. what is pushing those prices higher? Because I know you said the report not necessarily great for those wheat numbers.
Yeah, they lowered production by 5 million bushels on wheat, but that's not really much of a story when it comes to this. We had already started to take off in the middle of the night when we heard that there were 2 attacks by the Ukrainians on Russian ports, and one of those being a very major export port for them. So that was the kind of the spark on the wheat market that got us going in the overnight, 16, 20 cents higher, and as the day kept moving on before the report, we were upwards of 28 or 30 cents higher, which is exactly where we sit right now. So Chicago wheat's up 22, KC wheat's up 27, 28 cents, and the spring wheat is up about 14 or 15 cents right now. So that's the excitement on that market. But if you look at the chart on this, that wheat market has been extremely choppy, which is like an every other day type thing. It's whatever the most current headline is that's moving that market. So if you look at it, it's going higher, but it's on the last, say, 10 days, it's been more of a sideways chop than anything. So you need to see what that next headline is going to be, because all of these concerns about what's going on in world wheat, whether it's some of the drought in France or some of the port issues over in Ukraine or Russia, they are not equating to additional export demand here in the United States. And that's a big concern when you consider that we still have over 700 million in carryout for that wheat side of things.
All right, Greg, lots of great information today. For anybody who would like to get in touch for more marketing information, how can they do that?
Give us a call at 800-2-MARKET. That's 800-262-7538.
Looks like another perfect day to get out there and enjoy the summer.
You hear that? Live music, laughing kids, the roar of the rides, and someone yelling, "Corn dogs!" That's Fair Spirit at the Iowa State Fair, August 13th through 23rd in Des Moines. 11 days of blue ribbon traditions, big summer nights, incredible food, and the kind of memories you talk about all year long. This is your Iowa State Fair. Plan your visit now at iowastatefair.org.
August 13th through the 23rd.
This is the Midday Market Update on Iowa Ag Matters. I'm Mark Magnuson. Joined today at midday by John Heinberg of Total Farm Marketing. John, what's happening with the trade in the grains?
Well, we got the lower trade in the cereal grains. Beans getting a little bit of strength so far today. But let's get started in the one that's probably seen the most activity in general today. That's been the wheat market. We were trading double digits higher, 11, 12 cents higher. Then we did get a headline came out that Ukraine reached out to Russia with a potential ceasefire against civilian targets. And that would also include those grain elevators that they've been hitting on each side of the equation. And we quickly saw wheat go from double digits higher to about 5-6 cents lower in short order, still trading around the flat, a penny or so lower now on that Chicago wheat, KC wheat down a penny or two. So that's going to be a headline we need to watch. Now, corn's been down most of the day today. And when that wheat headline broke, we had probably had another penny or so, but we've been trading 6-7 cents down most of the day. So a couple things came out today that just maybe are questionable. First off, CONAB came out and they raised the Brazilian production on corn up over last year's estimate, around 143 million metric tons. They got an increased corn carry out as well in that country. So just ample supplies of corn between South America and the United States old crop that's out there. That's just going to keep this market limited in terms of rally.
What's happening on the livestock side of the trade today, John?
We got a difficult day going in the livestock market. Cattle $3 down across the board. Feeder cattle down to $2 to $3 across the board. Hearing some whispers that cash trade has been very quiet. Even some trade maybe a little bit softer. I think we just kind of broke apart technically the last couple of days here, and the money's just again moving out of cattle now. October is poking around that 220 level. Same with December. It's kind of a key spot that maybe we need to hold here. We do have obviously some further downside if it wants to go challenge those lows from mid-July. So we'll see. But it'd be nice to see it get some footing here around this 220 level and maybe settle itself in at that point. But it's been a very aggressive week on the cattle market. Same thing with feeders, just following suit.
What's the best way for our listeners to get in touch for more marketing information?
love to chat with them anytime. Give me a call, 800-334-9779. Shoot me an email at john.heinberg@totalfarmmarketing.com. And don't forget the website, totalfarmmarketing.com.
No one knows your fields better than you, but it's hard to be everywhere at once. Sky Scout from Landis Cooperative helps you keep an eye on every acre throughout the growing season. Using aerial imagery and expert analysis, Sky Scout can help identify crop stress, stand concerns, nutrient issues, and other potential challenges before they become bigger problems. The result? More informed decisions and greater confidence in every pass across the field. Because the earlier you know, the more options you have. Talk with your Landis representative or call 515-817-2100 to learn more about Sky Scout today.
September corn down 7 3/4 at $4.49 1/4. September soybeans up 2 1/4 at $11.67 1/2. September soybean meal up $2.60 at $3.11 September soybean oil down 29 cents at $68.87. Chicago wheat down 20 cents at $6.52 1/2. Minneapolis wheat is up 3 cents at $6.75. Kansas City hard red wheat down a penny at $7.19 3/4. September oats down 4 cents at $3.19 1/4. On the Merc, August live cattle down 358 at $227. August feeder cattle down 380 at $342.55. October lean hogs down $1.50 at $82.05.
That was a check of the midday markets on Iowa Ag Matters. I'm Mark Magnuson. This is Iowa Ag Matters on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, and Dustin with the chance to discuss the livestock side of the markets now with Eric Ralph of Comstock. Here's Dustin with more.
Looking at the livestock side of things, Eric, I know cattle has had quite a back and forth, very volatile last couple of weeks, and hogs have been kind of just quietly moving back and forth. What are we seeing as we head into this Thursday?
Further weakness after a big washout yesterday. I'm actually surprised to see $2 lower feeders here this morning, $1.50 lower in the live futures. The sentiment has definitely shifted. I could point to a few things, but I think first and foremost, if we are going to perceive that corn's going to be notably higher moving forward, then that's going to put pressure on feeders in the initial trade, which is what we're seeing right now. That's probably some of what we saw yesterday. I don't know that it warrants any follow through today. The cash market is struggling a little bit. We should see some special sales coming up here over the next few weeks. That could kind of boost things back up a little bit. Fed cattle cash appears that it's going to be several dollars lower this week after a couple of weeks of gains. We had the big washout in the cash market, and then we start clawing back. We gained a couple bucks last week, a couple bucks the week before that, and now we're going to give most of that back by the looks of it so far. It is Thursday. There's still time to trade this thing. We'll see how it ends up, but it looks like we're going to have $2-3 lower weighted average this week. And it's just general sentiment. Tyson earnings reported yesterday. They're expecting the beef sector to lose between 500 and 650 million for year 26. That's not going to be a good thing for the market because, obviously they're going to throttle back on the beef side of things if they continue to ratchet up those losses like what we're seeing right now, and everybody kind of takes note of that. So that's been a lot of this struggle in conjunction with the higher grain prices and the perception that those prices are going to continue. Hogs just cannot get going in the negotiated market. Although fourth quarter hogs are probably undervalued here, we just can't get anything to spur the cash market. And without that cash market coming, I don't know that we can expect much out of the futures either.
When we see that pressure on these packers, they're talking about operating at a loss. Obviously, you said they're not going to be putting that much money in. I mean, is that going to be, we've been looking for what's going to be that catalyst that gets producers having to produce more steers again and produce more heifers to keep more heifers back or to breed. Could that be part of that catalyst? If they're not able to pay as much, that they're not going to be buying it, they're going to have to start producing more cattle to make up that difference.
Absolutely. And I don't know, it's kind of a catch-22 for them as well. I had a client pose the question the other day, well, why don't the packers just kill demand? Because they have the ability to price that beef at wherever they want to price it. If they price it too high, that'll kill demand and they don't have to buy as many cattle. However, if the beef price starts ratcheting up, then the cattle market comes with it. And so it's all interconnected, and at the end of the day, it's all to service the consumer, which is the beef. And if the pieces don't work right, something's going to give. And I don't know what the timing of that could be.
$400 bill on that pool table. Who's going to be sold?
In rural Iowa, we know you're sold on your local radio station. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network partners with local Iowa stations to deliver the latest in agriculture news, including grain elevator prices, market reports, and ag policy news. Trusted local voices, trusted ag content. This message is brought to you by your friends at the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, where Iowa Ag matters.
Well, yesterday we heard a conversation get started with Mike Witt of Wiffels as he talked with Mark Magnuson at the Between the Rows event earlier this week up by Nevada. Mark's got the rest of that conversation for us right now.
Mark Magnuson for the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, and I'm joined today by Mike Witt of Wiffels Hybrids. Mike, thanks so much for having us out today to the Between the Rows event here at Wiffels. We're at the distribution site, which is right between Ames and Nevada, and we are just outside that distribution site. We've got some corn behind us, as you can see, and some of the farmers who are out here at the event are going through the various stations here today. Mike, could you tell me, please, your role at Wiffels Hybrids?
Yeah, my role is I'm an area agronomy manager. So my job is to go around and talk with farmers, talk with sales force, talk with anybody, and really answer those agronomic questions. And as you know, with agronomy, that's a broad spectrum, so our questions can run the gamut of anything that has to do with that. And here at Wiffels, some of our things that we really like to do is like to have a lot of that independence and a lot of those answers on any of those topics that has to go with agronomy and corn and farming.
How bad has nitrogen loss been this year in the state of Iowa? Because we have had pretty consistent rain early in the season, then things calmed down significantly in the middle of the season. Now we're starting to get some rain again here as we get ramped up for harvest.
Yeah. So it's been, we'll call it the tail of Iowa. So I live down here around Des Moines and Story County, Polk County area. So we're at about 27 inches, which is ridiculous, the amount of rain that we've had here. So for us, the nitrogen usage has been, we put it on, it's gone through the system, it got flushed out of the system, and now we're going to see some penalties from that throughout the season. The other area, though, if I go up further northwest, they're more of in a droughty scenario. So again, let's flip that a little bit. They're still having nitrogen issues, but it's for a different reason. So it's either availability or that plants just aren't able to utilize it as much because we've got drought and stress conditions. So even though it seems like it's an easy answer, it really depends on where you're at. So for us, nitrogen use efficiency and what we're talking about today is going to go that gamut. We have a nitrogen use trial in which we have corn out here. We have one of our hybrids, 7424 that we put out here. We put different rates of nitrogen on it from 280 pounds down to 0 pounds. The goal of that is to show that does the 280 pounds of nitrogen yield the most? Probably not. There's a sweet spot in there between that 180 and 280. That's really going to be the maximization of profitability. That's what we're looking for in there. And with this year, with all this rain and all the moisture we've had here at this site, it's pretty interesting, some of the results that we're seeing.
And then, any growing season, you're going to get curveballs thrown at you. We had that stretch with those over 100-degree days or around 100 degrees. And we know that how much stress that can cause for corn on those individual days where it is that hot. How did you see Wiffels Hybrids stand up to that this year when we have those very extreme instances of heat? Because I know going into that bag, you're always working on the technology for those things like heat stress and drought stress.
Yes, absolutely. And one of the things that we pride ourselves at Wiffels Hybrids is understanding our corn and knowing what it's going to do and understanding how it can handle a lot of those situations. And we have some hybrids, obviously, like every company, that do really, really well in droughty scenarios. And then we have some that can struggle on lighter soils when it comes to some of those droughts and those. But again, it's about understanding what those hybrids are and informing farmers, hey, here's your expectations, here's what we're looking at, how can we help and how can we assist you when it comes to those things like that. One of the big things that we have seen, though, is a lot of the Wiffels hybrids that we've seen did a really good job of pollinating through that heat. So there is going to be, you'll probably see on just about everybody, we'll talk about this thing called tip back this year. So no one can avoid it. But when it comes to other hybrids and things like that I've seen, I feel Wiffels hybrids can stand up and say, hey, we're right there with everyone else. We're equal and we're on par. We're better in some places than that. So we're pretty proud of how we've done on some of those harder conditions.
He is Mike Witt with Wiffels Hybrids. Mike, thanks so much for taking the time to join me here today. Really appreciate it, and have a great event tonight and a great rest of the growing season and into harvest.
Thank you for coming.
ACM and CMA award winner, Hardy.
That's my favorite country song.
Live in concert.
I woke up on the wrong side of the truck bed this morning.
August 13th, 8 p.m., Iowa State Fair Grandstand.
You got it good, old boy.
With special guest McCoy Moore. Hardy Live. Reserve tickets on sale now through iowastatefair.org. Hardy 2026.
In rural Iowa, we know you're sold on your local radio station. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network partners with local Iowa stations to deliver the latest in agriculture news, including grain elevator prices, market reports, and ag policy news. Trusted local voices, trusted ag content. This message is brought to you by your friends at the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, where Iowa Ag matters.
Well, we are just getting underway here at the Iowa State Fair. Day one is not in the books. We're getting there, though. The show is in the books, though, for day one of the fair. Of course, we're going to be hearing from Senator Chuck Grassley tomorrow. Senator Nag will be stopping by to talk to us tomorrow as well. There's going to be lots of stuff for us to get to, and you can look up, of course, on our website, iowaagnet.com. Thanks to Mark. Thanks to Riley. Of course, thanks to you for listening. Come see us again by the cattle barn at the Iowa State Fairgrounds. This has been Iowa Ag Matters.